Stephen here again, and welcome back to my Apache Nifi videos using some aviation data. And I wanted to thank everyone for watching these videos and taking a chance to subscribe to the channel. That way you can get notified when I put new videos out. And I'm going to try to get back to my regular schedule, getting at least one done per week. Been a little busy at work, so that's held me up. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video, what we have in this video, what's in store for us. So like it says up here on the screen, we're going to cover some ways that you can utilize processors for ETLs. And in this one, we're going to cover the GenerateTableFetch. So let's go ahead and grab that one out here. So first thing we need is a GenerateTableFetch. And here we go, right here. Go ahead and select this one. Take a look at its usage real quick. It's a very long description, so what we're basically, I'm going to summarize a lot of it really quick. But what this does is, if you've used tools like, say, Spark before in the past, Spark lets you create partitions when you're pulling data out of databases or other sources like that, and it partitions out the data. And you can set up a partition and how big you want those partitions to be in order to pull the data out in smaller chunks, which helps things flow a lot quicker. It allows you to do things in parallel. So it can be very helpful when you're using something like Spark. Here in Nifi, though, this processor gives us the ability to build partition SQL statements, basically. So we have a couple things that we're going to be filling out inside of it, and how we're going to manage those partitions, and how to know what we need to do in order to make this work. So let's go ahead and leave this real quick. And let's go ahead and select it. So what we're going to do is use the SQL server that I've been using. Let's go ahead and change from generic down to MySQL. And I meant MySQL up here. So in this case, what we're going to pull the data out, we're just going to pull out one of our existing tables and throw it into an empty table. And for this one, we're going to be utilizing the aviation active flights. All right, there we go. And there's a couple things you can do when you're using this one. You can do return columns. If you don't put in a column separated list of columns you're trying to return, then you're just going to get everything. So I find this processor would be very helpful for if I'm trying to duplicate a table from a source over to my own database, so I can work with it in my own database. This is a really good way about taking care of that problem. So in this case, we're not going to use columns to return because we want to return everything. Now we do have a maximum value column. This is helpful for updates. So I'm going to put ID in there because that's what it is inside the table. I'm not going to mess with the max wait time. Partition size. So we're just going to do 100. I think there's almost like 160,000 in there right now. So now we have column for value partitioning. And if we look in here, the name of the column whose values will be used for partitioning. So in this case, it's going to be the same one that we're using for our maximum value column. So I'll put ID in here. Now, if you didn't know, the maximum value column, it's a column, like it says in the description, column separated list of names. The processor will keep track of the max value for each column that has been returned since the processor started running. So what this means is once we get all the data from the existing table over to us, if we leave this processor running, say every 5 minutes, it will go back and it'll check that table again to see if there's any new ID values that are greater than the last one it left off on. And we'll take a look at that, what it looks like inside the flow file. And then we're not going to add any additional where clauses, but we could if we wanted to. And not going to do any ordering here as well. And I'll put empty flow files on 0 results, and that's going to be false because I don't want to have that handle for empty flow files going to the next processor and just getting an error for no reason. So leaving that on false is very helpful in this case. And basically, the way we have it set up right now is going to give us a raw copy of our source table and generate a whole bunch of flow files that are going to be set up for partitions of 100 each. So let's see what that looks like when we do that. All right, so we need another one. So from here, this is going to generate SQL statements. So what are we going to put that into? Well, we're going to use the execute SQL, execute SQL. We'll go ahead and drag it out there and connect them. Take the success. We'll go ahead and terminate the failure. Go ahead and bring that over here real quick, clean it up. Now, this is going to give us flow files, and we're going to take them into the execute. Because this is going to be the one, this doesn't actually do anything, except it's going to query the source table, find out what the min and max is for the ID field in this case, and then it's going to build us some SQL statements. So in here, change scheduling for this guy over to event driven, meaning processor will be scheduled to run when triggered by an event. So incoming flow file is what's going to work for this one. So there's no time based on it when we select that. It is experimental still. And we want the SQL Server. We're not going to populate any of the pre, post, or select query positions because that's going to be coming in from our flow file. And honestly, in this case, we don't need to make any, I guess we can just do one per. So output one flow file per row. All right, apply that one. And before we build out the rest of this, let's go ahead and take a look at this GenerateTableFetch and see what it's doing for us and what it's going to provide us for a flow file. So we'll go ahead and say start. Give it a second. We already got 1,928 different flow files there. And we can see it's still running, but it's not generating anything new. So let's take a look at what these flow files are. We go and look at the flow file themselves. We can take a look at the attributes. And inside the attributes, we see we have a fragment count. And then we have ourselves a generate fetch limit. So there's our limit of 100. There's the max column name on ID. The offset, so it's telling us where it's starting at, where the offset is right now. So in this case, the table actually starts at 16,901, so that's the first record in there. We can see a where clause is being generated here, the table name. Now let's see what this looks like inside the flow file for the details. And here we go. So we see we have a standard select all. So we have select all from the aviation active flights, where the ID is less than or equal to 209,700. So it's identified the max value in the ID field, and it's identified the smallest value in the ID field as well, which, like I said, starts at 16,901. So it's saying, hey, within this range, I want you to give me everything in the ID that's less than 17,001. So that's what this is, just a regular select statement. And we take a look at the next one real quick. And we see the select statement has changed for the next one. So in the next one, it has the ID now has been changed to 17001 as our smallest ID. And it's moving up to another 100 because that's what we asked for a partition size. So it's going to 101. So pretty simple here. It's just generating a whole bunch of select statements for us, and we don't have to do this. And that's why we have 1,928. So what we want to do is set up the next step after the execute that we're going to take this to, and that is going to be the convert JSON. So because it is arrow, we need to take that, turn it to JSON. In this case, there's better ways of doing it, and we can look at some of those a little bit later. And now we can go ahead and set up the relationship here for the failure to terminate. And we are going to let this run and see what we get out of this. Whoa, we're filling up our queue here, but we have 7,000 already. And we maxed it out at the 10,000 mark for the queue. We can take a look at this now, and we can see content-wise, we have a record out of the table starting, and this one just happens to be ID 17001. So very cool. Let's go ahead and finish that one off. Now we need to go ahead and convert this to SQL. get rid of the failure, terminate that one off. We're going to leave it at, we're going to get rid of the array. I just like not using arrays unless I need to. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'll put that on the side now. My mistake. So this next one, this one is going to be back to the server. It's going to be an insert. And the table I'm going to use is going to be called activation. It's basically a duplicate of the source table for the schema. So I just add temp to the end. And in this case, we don't need that portion because we put catalog down here. And because it is MySQL, there's no schema name. And the rest should be standard, just leave them alone. And then we know we need to do a put SQL. Connect that one up. We want the SQL. We want to terminate the failure in the original. And there we go. Select the database connection. That's all good. Everything looks good there. All right, so we should be able to move forward to the next one. Now things are flowing through. This one shouldn't get any errors. This one needs to be terminated. We're not going to handle these at all right now for this example, and we should be able to start it. And there we go. Give it a minute here to start putting stuff in. There, okay, so we got records going in, and they're getting handled. And now, if we go back here, take a look at our database. So let me switch over to dbeaver. There we go. And we took them out of the active flight, or which one did I say I was taking that from? Yeah, active flights. And we're basically putting them into active flights temp. So now if we come in here and take a look at that, we have a record. So here we go. We had a, I mean, imagine where you may have a really large data source. This can be an easy way to break up, partition out those rows, and start bringing them over to you and inserting them into your source. It can speed things along because you're doing smaller batches at a time. So it's easier to work with, easier to keep track. And because we have that other max value ID, that means every time this guy runs, so like right now it's running as often as possible. That's why we don't see the one going away, because it's always running now and always checking that table. And we're not getting anything new. We just had the original ones that we got from it, because nothing new is going into this source table. Now, if something new went into the source table, we would see that change. And we should be able to go up here. Oh, I'm trying to think which one will give us a good example here. Okay, let me find a good example here of, we can just generate some records here. I'll get some more. I think that will. Now we just have the original batch. But that's how it will work. And you're going to get an example of how that max ID field, or ID, the max column works, max value column. So we'll cover that in the next processor that we go over, which will give us another example of how we can ETL data from a source table to our table, or make some changes to it on the fly as well. So this was our GenerateTableFetch, and basically use it to generate a whole bunch of partitioned SQL statements that you then execute inside the execute SQL, and then take it all the way to your destination table so that you can have your own version of the data. And like you saw on the options there were some options to do custom queries and stuff, or change up what you want to get out of that. Maybe you don't need everything out there, but if you're just looking for a exact duplicate of that source table, then setting it up like this is a good way to get there. All right. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. It's definitely very helpful to me, and lets me know if you're enjoying these videos or which ones you enjoy the most. And don't forget to leave a comment if you got any questions. I definitely read all of them, and I try to answer as many as I can with the best, to the best of my abilities as well. And if not, I'll take some time to go look up some answers for you if I need to. So definitely hit that subscribe button, that like button, and then I'll catch you in the next video and we'll cover a little bit more. Till next time.